Yeah. I said.
Which is really weird. I don't know why we got time. We'll get it done. We'll get it done.
Call the meeting to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item is the consent agenda.
Make a motion on the consent agenda.
Any motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second?
Second.
Move the second. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, nay. Motion passes. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to speak to something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, move down to new business. Here's tractor project, industrial bond. Glenn, do you want to present this to the council?
We got Kevin Cowan here from Gilmore Bell, actually. I don't know if you recognize Kevin. He's been here
I don't.
before. He's our bond counsel on this and.
Don't see it very often.
Yeah.
True.
Probably a good thing.
Probably for you, I'd say. So good evening, Mayor and Council. Kevin Cowan with Gilmore and Bell. It has the city's bond council. It's been a few years since I have been here. Tonight, we're just talking about final action on this industrial revenue bond for Heritage Tractor. If you looked at any of the documents, you may have noticed that they're the corporate entity that actually owns the building and benefits from the bonds is Muth Properties LLC. So sort of doing business as Heritage Tractor there. This is the conclusion of a process that started last summer, I think. There was an initial intent resolution. Got a project exemption certificate based on that for the company on sales tax exemption. They proceeded to construct late in the year. You had a hearing with respect to property tax abatement, which is required by statute. And so those are all the prerequisites to getting here tonight. The project is complete, we think. The bond documents are drafted as not to exceed $2 million amount. I have invoices that show they've spent, it's $1,940,000. So at closing, they'll make a draw of that amount to reimburse everything they've spent on the facility. They would have the opportunity to draw a little bit more. I don't expect that. They'll probably file a certificate of completion at the same time, and so we'll be done at that principal amount. But again, the ordinance authorizes all of those actions, all of the bond documents. There's a trust indenture with a bond trustee. There's a lease agreement. The city will have site lease and a lease agreement. City will take a leasehold interest in the facility and then lease it back. The lease back is required by statute. Those lease payments are the bond payments, just how our state statutes work. None of the bonds are an obligation of any public monies by statute. We have to print on the bond itself. The city's not pledging any public money. The only thing you're pledging is your interest in the facility under the lease and any revenue that you receive under the lease. So that's kind of it. After tonight, we're planning to close on June 5th. And then really anytime between now and early next year, the property tax abatement application will be filed with the county. That will then be granted presumably by the Board of Tax Appeals early next year. And so the property tax abatement will actually start next year based on the bonds being issued in this calendar year. So I'll stop there, stand for any questions, comments you may have.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else like to speak to this agenda item? Do you have any more to present?
Sorry?
Do you have any more to present, or is that?
No,
Okay.
just, there's formal action on the ordinance, but that's it for this evening. So
Okay.
I'll still be here if you have any questions.
Sounds great. Thank
Thanks.
you. Anybody else from the public like to speak to this agenda item? Any council discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
All right, I'll read it. She wants to.
You take it away.
I move to approve an ordinance authorizing the city, Baldwin City, Kansas, to issue a taxable industrial revenue bond Heritage Tractor Project Series 2024 for the purpose of providing funds to pay the cost of acquiring, purchasing, constructing, installing, and equipping a commercial facility, including land, buildings, structures, improvements, fixtures, machinery, and equipment. Authorizing the city to enter into certain documents and actions in connection with the issuance of said bonds.
Moved, seconded. Gary?
Yes.
Susan?
Aye.
Scott?
Yes.
Julie?
Aye.
Motion passes 4-0. Next item on the agenda is appointment to the local emergency planning committee. Glenn, you want to explain this to the council?
Yeah, it's just a emergency planning committee done by the county, and I think last year, it's a yearly appointment actually, and I think we has currently appointed the police chief to that position, and he has agreed to do it once again, so.
Anybody else in the community like to speak to this agenda item? Council discussion? I'll entertain a motion.
I motion to reappoint Chief Mike Patrick to the Douglas County Emergency Planning Board.
Second.
Moved and second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Next item on the agenda is the DCA ordinance. I'll let you present this, or?
Okay, we got a rate study, I think it was done by KMDA tail end of last year, and it basically outlined 3 different options to go forward. A couple of them involved rate increases or a combination of rate increases, or what we call a power cost adjustment. Power cost adjustment is built into your existing rate ordinance, and that's what you have in front of you. It's a formula that basically captures cost, variable costs, basically natural gas and some other things that are in there. The PCA we have has been there for a while, and it needs to be adjusted. So what KMDA did in their recommendation was, instead of going with just a rate increase, which is a cost per kilowatt hour, which you can do, a lot of cities do that, they recommended we increase or we adjust the PCA on there to cover the variable cost, which seems to be the turmoil in the market is causing that to go up. So if you remember, the recommendation number 3 out of those options was to adjust our PCA. So the Finance Committee, I know, has looked at various options as far as this goes and whatever, and I don't know if they really have a conclusion or recommendation at this point to actually move ahead on that. But we thought I'd bring it to your attention because it's an ordinance. Anytime you change your rates, it has to be done by ordinance. It's actually in your existing ordinance, always has been. So if we're going to change that formula, you have to actually change the ordinance. So the discussion is we want to do a regular rate increase or PCA or a combination of both. And KMDA really just said, if you adjust that PCA, it should be pretty good going forward. So that's the discussion we've had, and that's why we're here tonight. Talk about changing the actual ordinance on the PCA and the rates. So that makes sense to you.
So you want to follow up?
Yeah, no, I think he summarized it very well. As you know, we're always looking at expected reserve fund balance at the end of the year. That's how we have a policy to try to hit that, project costs. One of those is fuel costs. And if you remember in December when KMEA presented, there were 3 options. Both the option 1 and 2 involved 2024 rate increases. And rate option 3 was to adjust the PCA. And you'll see that on your bill called FA fuel adjustment.
Fuel adjustment is what it is, yeah.
On your bill. And for whatever reason, Jeff's been working like crazy, and sitting down with him trying to figure out, the previous PCA formula didn't actually capture the variation in the power costs. because there was averaging going on. And, you know, when you do that and you have large spikes, you don't actually catch that spike. You never, ever catch up. So I think what's been happening as we've been struggling with, you know, not raising rates, but getting close to needing to do that is because the PCA is not keeping track or keeping in line with the fuel cost as they fluctuate. So what we've been looking at is trying to figure out, you know, option 3 recommendation is to change that PCA formula. And we're just trying to figure out, so what we want to do is treat tonight as like the first reading for the council that we want to, you know, they've recommended a PCA value different than the one we're using. We just want to make sure, you know, we'll look at it again in budget and finance, make sure we understand that that makes sense and how we would explain that. But the second reading would then have that actual number in there of what, you know, what we want to move it to, what we want to move the formula to, and you have in your packet tonight what the current ordinance says for that. So that's what we're using today. We're going to move to something new. So it's really trying to avoid a rate increase mid-year, but you will see spikes then based on what our fuel costs are as they happen. And they potentially could be a lot larger swings because we're not going to average them out over a 3-month period anymore, but they will represent what it's actually costing us to provide the electricity to buy the power. So, and we expect that if we do that, that we should be within policy at the end of the year for the fund. Continue to watch it, but that's what the estimate looks like.
Have you got an estimate of cost?
Estimate of what?
An estimate of what the cost is going to come to?
What the PCA is? Well, we're trying to figure out what the base amount is built in the current formula, and then what that needs to be in the PCA adjustment to say, if we, just give you an example.
And that will be the figures that you have.
Yeah, so
last
just
reading.
give you a round number. Say we built in the $11.54 or 1154 0.1154 for 1,000 kilowatts. Say we built in, you know, 0.1 for the power costs each month as an average for the year, and in June it goes to 0.2.
And
Well,
what goes to point 2?
the actual cost of the power that we're
Yes.
buying. So you remember we have those 5 purchase power agreements that we're getting all the electricity from. We have agreements that, you know, they have the ability to change that based on fuel cost. So those changes hit us, and we need to have a way to then pass those through to make sure that we don't go negative in the electric fund. So what we're trying to do then is find that PCA average based on our base, what that would be all year if our power costs never change. That's kind of our base PCA. And then whatever it goes above that or below that every month is what that PCA charge would be.
How do you figure the power loss?
A power loss,
Yes.
it wouldn't be a
Like
power
those-
loss, it would
those-
be a power cost less than,
A
yeah.
power loss in receiving total, the electricity that disappears that we never get to see, like that's stolen or.
oh, yeah, there's transmission, you guys can talk better too, there's transmission losses, there's losses on electricity we provide that we don't charge for. I think streetlights, things like that, you know,
Yeah,
there's
streetlights
things
would
you
be
see.
one, yes.
Yeah, so those are considered losses along with transmission losses, and I think we factor in about 10%.
That's correct, yeah.
To our budget, so
Yeah.
those are just normal.
So when you get through figuring here, that's all figured in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, that was actually in the formula. If you look at there, that 1.1, that
Yeah,
10% is the
1.1,
loss.
yes.
Yeah. It will still be in there.
Okay.
Yep. Learned way too much about our electric utility.
You can start your own company.
Is there anybody else from the public that'd like to speak to this agenda item? Glenn, you have any more on this?
Yeah, the good thing about the power cost adjustment, it is actual adjustment, so it does fluctuate. It goes up and down every month or every billing period, and it can go negative, and we have seen that. It's really the price of gas. Natural gas is what drives most of that. So when natural gas is cheap, you actually see, you're not going to see a huge decrease or huge increase usually, but on that, it can decrease, and we've experienced that in the past few years. Ever since we got through that winter storm Uri, and some of it's calmed down, not all of it since then, we've actually seen some negative PCA. So you won't save a whole lot on that. So the whole gist of this is to follow that cost so you don't lose money. You're not making it, you should be breaking even, which right now we're not. We can actually lose money on that. But we do experience some negative PCAs. So that's different than just setting a rate and leaving it there. So, but that's our recommendation to do that, so at least you cover your costs going forward. So if you want the next council meeting, we can come up with what that PCA number, that adjustment is, present that. And we'll also be talking about our wholesale power cost coming forward, because we have our baseload contract up in 26. We'll have to decide by the end of this year, and we really should do it closer to the end of summer than at the end of the year. So we know what our base load is going to be, and we've got about 3 or 4 options that we'll present on that. KMA will, of course, help us through all that too. So those will both be coming forward here probably in June. So sooner we decide those 2 things, the better we are. So there you are. Everything you want to know about electric rates.
Any further council discussion on this agenda item?
So they gave us 3 options. So tell me what the advantage of option 3 is compared to the other 2.
Well, in my opinion, option 3 actually just tries to capture the difference in the power cost. The other 2 options are picking a rate that we hope would cover it.
Right.
Might be too much, it might be too little. It's going to be wrong because we really don't know what those fluctuations would be. So to me, option 3 allowed us to do the PCA and just recover those actual costs and avoid a rate increase, which if you read, they're proposing 5% based on forecast for rate increase after we change the PCA this year. That's my opinion on it.
No, I agree. PCA is essentially just capturing your costs and your true expenses, where the rate increase is just, let's hope we cover everything.
You usually get conservative and you oversteer.
Yeah.
So I think personally, I think that PCA is more transparent because it's just passing through
I agree.
exactly what it's costing us. I think, didn't one option call for a rate increase and a PCA adjustment?
Yeah, because it says in 2025 an increased rate is 5%,
Yeah, it was option.
along with the option 3.
Yeah.
It was option 3. And the other 2 had 2-step rate increases. One was a 2-step and one was a 5-step. And option 3 was the PCA plus next year rate increase. I don't think the others have talked about adjusting PCA.
So something to think about. Bring it back every couple of weeks. That's good?
Yeah.
Anything
Yeah.
else on this agenda item? All right, wages salary study, go ahead.
This up here, and I don't know if you get anything on there. Okay. Well, hopefully you got a good memory, or you got it on your. Well, it's been a while. 3 years ago, I think we did our last wage and salary study. It was actually Austin Peters' group that did the same thing. Same people we're using this time. So it was sometime last year. It feels like it's been longer than that. We decided to do another one here because we have felt the pressure from a lot of different sources here about wages within a lot of the cities. So we commissioned another one, and Austin Peters put this together, and it's been a few months. So this is the findings of it. The background is we broadened this one out a little bit. This is a little different than what we did before. So we had about 20 different organizations that participated in this, which is very high response. I think we sent out about 22 or something requests and got 20 back, which is pretty good. The difference this time is that we compared ourselves a little differently, because one of the things driving the study, if you remember, was we were concerned about how competitive we were with our sworn police officers, everybody in the police department. So what I had them do was compare us not just with cities our size, which is typically the way you do this, but with the other organizations around us that would just be police, that would be the sheriff. And so we're comparing also with county officers as well. And that's what they did. They actually put those in the study. They also included some cities that were very much like us because they have electrical generation. So a lot of cities our size don't have generator. They may have distribution, but we want to make sure we're comparing apples and apples here. So we have generation, we have people work there. So we compared us with some cities just on the generation itself, just to see what they're paying their power plant people, regardless of their size and whether or not they're actually what we call a peer on that. So it's a little different on this one. So we included some cities and some organization we wouldn't normally do, but I think it made this a little bit, a little more accurate as far as we go. So what we did is compare the wages and also with all the benefits. Remember, that's right up front too, and the benefits are important. So we compare very well as far as our benefits go with our competitors around us. But as we go through this, you see what they recommended this time was two options. One was to go to what was called a 60th percentile, which is I think what we did last time. So rather than just paying the average, you go to the 60th percentile instead. And then option number two would be moving everybody to a pay range that is a 70th percentile. And the whole point of doing that is if we're trying to recruit and retain the best people we possibly can do, you're probably going to want to pay them above just the 50% average. So when it's all said and done, and they show you right up front here in the study what those brackets would look like then, they followed up with some bar charts that showed where each one of the positions that we have compares with the 60th and the 70th percentile. So if you remember that, if you don't have it in front of you, they went down through each one of those positions and compared them. So that was kind of the written comparison. Again, their recommendation was actually to go to the 70th percentile as far as trying to accomplish what we're trying to accomplish here. Then, is there any questions on that? There's a lot of data in there, but the sort of heart of the matter is those two brackets there that show the 60 and the 70 percentile that you move to, and their recommendation is to go to the 70th. Make sense? All right, that's just kind of the 30,000 foot overview. What you can do from there, and what they showed us then, is going into each one of the positions and showing what they're paid right now, what that bracket, the 60th and 70th percentile bracket would look like, and then what it would cost to get everybody into the 60th and the 70th percentile. And what I'd like to do is actually focus on the 60th percentile. And what it's showing is going across the board, there's only 7 positions in our city right now that are not in the 60th percentile as they would recommend, as they're showing here on this data. Everybody else is well within their range, which is good news. What it tells me is that the past 3 years, we've actually kept up with the market on most of those positions. We're at least within that range of the 60th percentile. We might be a little high on some, a little low on others, but at least you're in there. So that's actually good news. We're paying appropriately, so we're in the market, so we are competitive. The only ones that are not, like I said, are 7. 2 of those are part-time positions, and 5 are full-time. So at the bottom line on the whole thing, if we were to go to the 60th percentile, so you say, okay, we're just going to do that. The total impact on your budget for just moving to that for an entire year would be $23,000, $23,646. That's under column R, which would be the new range minimum cost. That's just to get everybody into that minimum range. A little more interesting thing that they also did was a compression analysis. So if you do that and you get everybody into that range, what would it cost? Because now you're going to have some people who are close. You're going to have people who have more years of service or are pretty close to people who haven't been in their position. So what they did was throw in a compression cost, which basically spread those out. To me, it's going to be a decompression cost, not actually compression. But and so that would be another $18,000 on top of that. So the total for a year would be $41,000. Now, if the council was to implement that in 24 this year, that would be half of that. And then, of course, next year, if we waited to 25, that would be the full full amount, $41,000. Now, if you look over on the next one, would be the 70th percentile. The total cost to get everybody into the minimum range would be $40,000, and there's another $21,000 on top of that for the compression. So that's $61,000. A couple things stand out there. One is that the total cost to get everybody into their bottom bracket is not much. I mean, even the full this year is $23,000, and that's spread over all of our departments. That's not just coming out of the general fund or out of the utility. That's all of our department. The compression added on to that's 41. The striking thing for me, at least, is that the difference between the 60th and the 70th percentile is not that much. It's like another $20,000, but I would expect that to be much more, but it isn't. Well, like I said, the bottom line on this is that almost everybody who is on our payroll right now, part-time, full-time, is within at least the 60th percentile for this going forward. So we have kept up with the bonus I think we gave last year. We gave a flat amount to catch people up because inflation was running pretty high. But we've kept up with our annual merit increases as well as anything, cost adjustments and things like that. So the cost to move everybody into that minimum is fairly, minimum. So that's the good news out of the wage and salary study that they did. So that's a lot of numbers threw at you very quickly, but the way they constructed this was to go about it by the brackets and seeing if everybody's in at least that minimum, and then they recommended moving everybody to that minimum. So the choice is then between the 60th and the 70th percentile. And the other choice is whether you want to do it take any action this year or wait till next year as we go through our budget process and then adjust from there. So it's pretty flexible and you can kind of pick and choose which way you want to go with it. So that completely confused you?
What percentage is that?
What's that?
What percentage would that be per position?
It varies on the position.
Yeah, like I said, most of them aren't even
It varies
affected.
on the position.
Yeah, most of them aren't even affected at all. I mean, like to say, the total impact, $20,000 is, for a $14 million budget, it's not, I don't know what percentage that works out to be, but, most of our employees are already meeting that minimum in their bracket, so they wouldn't, they'll get what they usually get, is they get cost of living and merit raises as they go. That's good, but they wouldn't see any adjustment just because they're already over that minimum line. So there's only about 5 that would.
I thought there were 5 or 7.
Well, it's 7 if you count. There's 2 part-time. There's a 2 part-time
Well,
police
part-time
officers.
The guy up there directing traffic, and
No, that's the crossing guard, which we actually did include in
he
here.
was in there, but that falls off the police department, doesn't it?
Right, and they're well above their average, believe me. We pay our crossing guards a premium to do that. But no, we have a couple other part-time police officers, and they're under the average for our area.
Any other questions for Glenn?
I don't have any questions, but
Let's.
this one, I guess, there'll be another time to think about this, right?
Well, yeah. It's a lot of data to digest, and you should go about that carefully and whatever. But like I said, the good news is we've actually kept up. Just a few positions that have not been, going to where they should. The market has moved. I thought I was within the average, whatever, but apparently not. And some others are in the same position there, where the market has moved beyond what we thought was the average just a couple of years ago, and that's just the nature of the business right now.
I do have a question. If we did go to the 70% instead of the 60%, would that keep us from having to do it again in 2 years?
Okay, yeah, really good question there. I think their theory of moving to the 70th is 2 things. You want to keep up with the wage, and you want to pay more than the average. So you know, so when you're out there advertising for police officers or people working at the power plant or whatever, that you're above the other people around you when you're doing that. But it should adjust where you're not having to do a pay
What I'm getting
plan
at,
every
we
2
don't
years.
have to do it every 2 years, or
Right.
every year,
right.
if we did it one time.
Right. And I think that's really kind of what she was getting at when she was recommending the 70th percentile, so you don't fall behind again. So when you do this 3 or 4 years from now, you look back and go, we got, another half dozen or whatever that fell behind. So I think that's the logic behind it. I think you're right.
But that's my thought process at the
Yeah.
moment.
So I got a little different take on that. Maybe
sorry?
correct me if I'm wrong. I got a little different take on that because 70 percentile is based on the current market. If the market goes up in 2 years, if you still want to stay in the 70th percentile, you're going to have to go up with it. Now, if you say, I want to go to 70th percentile this time, and then if the market goes up and I fall back to the 60th, we're still okay. And maybe that's what you were referring to, but it doesn't necessarily mean that we don't have to do this again.
But if it goes up in 2 years, we're already partway there.
No. The whole thing would go up. Everybody's would go up. So our brackets would need to go up to stay in the 70th percentile.
Well, isn't that gonna be the same regardless?
Yes,
If you do it 60, it's still gonna be the same.
correct.
So why not do it, get it over with?
You're not understanding, because if in 2 years wages goes, through the roof,
Right?
we're
What happens if that?
going to fall behind. We'll no longer be in the 70th percentile if we don't change.
If at 60, we're still behind.
Yes.
It's just a larger number each time.
I understand what he's saying, but it's really not calculating.
I think you got to pick where you want to be as an organization comparatively to your peers. If you want to be in the 70th percentile, they give you the numbers to go do that. In 2 years, another survey, they're going to give you new numbers. If you still want to stay in the 70th percentile, they're probably going to be higher. And if you want to stay in the 70th in 2 years after that, you're going to have to follow it up. It doesn't prevent you from having to
I
raise.
don't have to worry about it in 2 years, I won't be here.
Okay. Fair enough.
The way to
Any other questions for Glenn?
Thank you.
I did.
Okay.
Do we have exempt positions?
Yes.
So why do we list those as hourly?
Just for comparisons.
Okay.
So yeah, all those salaries we break down to hourly.
To a
It's just-
40-hour week or what's
Yes,
the-
you compare with the two. Everybody's with a 280, except for the police officers that have a different schedule. So yes, another good question there is all of our exempt salary positions are just broken down per hour. So then you compare them across the board that way. So rather than do just like
Annual.
thousands, 10 or whatever it is.
That'd be an annual.
Yeah, you do it per. But yes, we our department heads and various positions are exempt across the board. So anyway.
You're talking about salaried employees. At our last meeting, we talked about salary employees getting 2-hour call-outs, did we not? 'Cause that's not true, is it?
I don't believe it is true.
If you're a salaried employee, you don't get 2 hours per call-out, is that right?
Correct.
Quit ringing my
I think-
bell.
Yeah, I did. I don't know where that came from, but yeah, whatever.
Any other questions for
Anyway.
Glenn?
There it is.
All right, thank you, Glenn.
All right.
Anybody else from the public like to comment to this agenda item? None, council discussion?
Anyway.
So what are we planning to do with this information?
Well, I think that's kind of part of the discussion tonight is, do we want to do anything this year? Do we want to wait and do it part of the budget cycle and have the discussions as part of the budget? I'll tell you where I stand. I think that's more the appropriate thing to do, is to make it part of the budget discussions versus doing it mid-year. But that's my opinion, where I stand.
What do you want, 60%?
Well, I think we just have to have the total conversation, see where our girls start coming in, see where we're sitting.
So you take 60%, you pay half of that this year, and then you pick the whole thing up next year.
That's if you decided to enact this year. Yeah, but I'm saying that I would recommend doing it next year and making it part of this year's budget season. So when we pass the budget, we understand what we can and can't do because of the changes. Or if there are any changes.
Yeah, we have to talk about it in the budget workshop. I mean, that's gonna be
That's
a line item number. You know, we always talk about, cost of living increase and merit increases. We ought to always plan for that. Well, this would be another 2 scenarios we can put in there and say, this is what it would look like, and then what's the rest of the budget look like? And then, as you know, we always come in, way over budget with everything, with all the needs of all the departments. Then it's gonna be a matter of what stuff is higher priority, and then we gotta start, looking at pulling things out. So, I mean, it's
Yeah.
just another
Right.
budget expense for 2025, and if the council wants to enact it halfway through this year, we gotta figure out where it comes from in the 2024 budget that's been set. So that's the place to talk about it. I mean, ideally, and unfortunately, we aren't gonna have, the employee survey done in time for, I think, impacting, at least certainly not the workshop, but we may have it back to rationalize, because a lot of it is around what do you value more, your benefits, your time off, your wages. So as you saw in the report, we are, favorably viewed compared to our peers from our benefits perspective. And you can't discount that because that's real money. I mean, that's a budget line item impact as well. So it's really looking at the full compensation package. And then if the survey comes back and says, you know what, that's not that important, we'd rather have better wages, and then you can make those decisions based on, what your employees are telling you is important. It'd be nice to have that before we start making some of these decisions. But, we maybe will have it before we have to finalize it in July, but I think that would be something to keep in the back of your mind of, and we got the whole, capers and, with the 501B and those types of, we need to look at the full compensation and from a budget perspective, see what it's costing us. As we look to defer other things into the following years, that's gonna be a trade-off, so. And the only other thing I've got a concern about, and I've seen this at previous companies, is, I think ranges are good. There's a reason to have a range because specifically just looking at a title, there's a vast difference in responsibilities and skill sets. And so that's why you need a range, right? Because that one title has, and to me, the 2 big things are, are you managing or leading anybody? So that's a different skill set. That's a different level of responsibility. You could have the same title as somebody else that doesn't. And I think that's why you have a range. Doesn't mean that everybody with that title goes to the top, because not everybody with that title necessarily is doing the same thing in each of those communities. So I think we need to be careful with that,
Right.
And just make sure that's apples and apples. And I think and if you look at what they did in their survey, they didn't really dive into a lot, at least what they said they looked for in the responses. So I just think we need to be careful there. And then, are you managing a budget? Do you own a budget? Are you responsible for a budget? So budget, ownership, I think, is another skill set that you could have in a job title that others don't. So in my mind, that's why you have a range. It doesn't mean everybody moves to the top of the range. Does that make sense?
Everybody.
Is there ever a time, I don't know one, I spent 30 years, well, longer than that with it. Is there ever a time where keepers, for example, changes their percentages that they take out?
I think the state legislature
Yeah.
makes that
That's
decision.
gotta be a
How much they
legislative
contribute.
movement. It never happens, does it?
Not too. I think in late, close to 2020, they actually started funding it at a higher level than what they did during the Brownback era and those times. But yeah, they've changed it.
And
It's been
insurance,
underfunded for years, but,
insurance for employees, does that change too?
Yes.
well, we cover 100%.
Yeah, but. all
Our
this-
cost,
That's
yes,
huge right
every
there.
year, yes,
Yes, our cost goes up every year.
yes.
We gotta eat that, right?
Yeah,
Or you get- or you say it's no longer 100, now it's 80, and you take that other and you put it in the wages. But it's money coming out of the budget. You're either giving employees one way or the other. It's full compensation package. And it varies, you know, if you're a young, 22-year-old just starting out with no family, you may not care about, the city picking up full family health care. Might be less important to you. So I'm certain in this survey, we're gonna see a wide range of what's important. Most important is wages, benefits, time off, all those things we'll need to look at.
Do we receive the information from the insurance companies quick enough to be able to figure that in with our,
I think we get our increases every spring, don't we? Glenn? They notify us
Yeah.
every spring on how much our employee insurance is going up.
That's in the fall. We
the
renew in
fall.
the fall. So we always have a fall meeting and then we renew in November, December. That's when we do it. So, last year we got good news. It's continues to go up, but it's a yearly renewal and we always do it in the fall.
But we can forecast it based off the last 3 years on what the percentage has been.
That's the best you can do. We would love it if we had that number before we do our budget, and we've always asked for that, but for whatever reason, the timing of how they do it never works out that way, so it's always well after we passed our budget.
Therefore, you would impact your reserve if you underestimate it.
yes, yes.
And that's why the
Yes.
reserve's there, right? It's like, ugh.
Yeah, I agree with your approach. I think this is a budget discussion
Yeah.
for sure.
And I think we've talked before, the council wants to retain and attract, highly qualified people. So I think we're all motivated to figure out how to do that.
Julie, you good putting it on the budget?
That's fine.
Jerry, good with that?
Whatever.
So,
Love your passion, Jerry.
when's the budget due every year?
September.
September,
Yeah.
starting July.
We'll start, next week we have our first work session.
Okay.
So, and we'll work, the committee will work through June, and we'll have another one at the end of June. And then we'll start bringing it, discussing council in July. The next agenda item, we should have been removed. I think the committee agreed to remove it.
Yeah, we talked about it in committee.
Okay, so I'll just need a motion to move this to the next meeting. This
The one
agenda.
that's posted, it's not on the one that's posted.
Oh, it's not? Okay, never mind. Okay, council committee reports, budget and finance, Scott.
Let's see here. I think we covered everything. We did review last meeting. Ben and Baker Tilly presented the April, and didn't have April yet. So we talked about the financials. I would like to see, Glenn, if we can ask Ben to present year-to-date next council meeting, if he's available.
We can do
He'll
that.
have the April numbers by then.
All right.
So we talked about what he had, it wasn't complete. We'll have him talk to the full council about what it looks like next time. We talked about the PCA options, we talked about that, so we covered that tonight. The budget calendar, 2025 budget calendar, we talked about next Tuesday's budget workshop, 7 p.m. At the police station. And then Glenn gave us a preview of the wage study results that you all saw. That's what we did in budget and finance. Next meeting will be Friday, 7:30 a.m. This Friday, 7:30 a.m., second floor City Hall.
Community development, Susan, you guys did not.
We have not met. And I think next meeting is, I'm gonna tell you next Monday.
Yeah, but that's Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I don't know when our next meeting is.
It'll be posted. Probably a week
To
from
be
Monday, I
continued.
imagine. Public safety, Susan.
We met today, minus Jerry, and discussed the ordinance around livestock on 3+ acres here in city limits. Chief Patrick brought some ordinances from other cities around our size, and we found Tonganoxie most closely near what we're looking at, around the parameters in place, like the kind of animals, number of animals, enclosures, that sort of thing. So we're gonna look at that a little bit more closely. I'd like to invite Dakota to our next meeting. Of course, you missed half of what I just said. That's okay, just show up to the meeting. So we can start forming an ordinance in Baldwin. And Chief Patrick expressed some concerns regarding the extra work for his department regarding animal control. Obviously, we already do a lot of that here in Baldwin, so we had further discussion on what kind of measures we could put in place for animal control. So we'll have more discussions on that at the next meeting as well. And next meeting is
Public Works, Julie.
We met on the 16th, and there was a contractor boring accident that affected Baker
June 11th.
University on May 10th. It was repaired after working many hours by the Public Works crew. Harbor Construction plans to be involved in mid to late August to begin chip and seal. All the restrooms are now open in the parks with no issues. Pool basin patched and the border was repainted. Public Works crew are testing and treating the water daily until the rec department takes over that on May 27th. Public Works crew is building a new driveway entrance on the south end of the golf course off of Orange Street for parking access, and that should be done by Memorial Day. A new water line on High Street between 2nd and 3rd Streets has been cleared for service by KDHE. When weather permits, the Public Works crew will begin transferring the residential water services over to the new line. Orchard Lane Box Culvert project started on May 14th, and they're anticipating completion in 2 weeks depending on the weather.
It opened today.
And it opened today, but they're still working on
They got one little spot there yet to do, but
it. Yeah, so
and it's nice.
it is nice, and it was much needed, so I'm glad it's done. Phase 2 of the Edgerton Emergency Water Supply Study is underway. New generation work is continuing on fabricating fuel lines, running cable trays, and conduit in the basement. Mid-States will return in June to continue the work. There was some trouble sourcing fuel pumps, but expect delivery on those at the end of the month. New substation application has been submitted for the new tie point for the new substation. Pat, Jeff, and Mid-States will be scheduling a site visit to discuss site preparation and tree removal for the project. Newton Substation, Mid-States will be in town the week of June 17th to finish breaker testing at the substation and the power plant number 2. Still discussing GRDA and PPA options, and still discussing what we just talked about, the electric rate restructuring. Next meeting is June 13th at 9 o'clock.
Thank you. Strategic planning, Scott.
We did meet with Ryan from our survey consulting firm ETC last Friday. He covered the responses from the follow-up survey that we all talked about and the council approved to explore more detail on those 4 most negative responded questions in the community survey. Out of the 150 people that had indicated they would be willing to do a follow-up survey and got the survey, 90 responded, which he said was very representative, and the need to continue to get more responses to see if you get any different results is not there. So he recommended that we take the input from that, and I think we asked that the department heads get that so they can look at those details of, you know, what the community was looking at, say if streets and sidewalks, what specifically about streets and sidewalks, you know, was the issue, and if there's things they could build into their budget to affect that, then they'll have the ability to, you know, bring that forward and say this is going to directly affect, positively affect this part of, you know, of the strategic plan. So, Amber, can we get that in the council package just so that the council has that as well next week or next time, the results? And we can cover it if you'd like, but it's, you know, you'll have it. Actually, just send it out by email.
Okay.
Then if you have any questions, but there's just more detail on why they checked negatively in the first one. So that was very helpful. I think will give us some ideas of what we can do in those areas to improve. Then we discussed, any questions on that before we go on? Then we discussed the employee survey that we're moving to get launched as quickly as possible. He brought forward, they do these all over the place, so they've got a super set of questions that they found to be effective to, you know, to find out what, you know, what issues and interests are of employees. So he brought forward a super set of questions in like 6 different areas, and we went through those to kind of try to weed it down. It was like 6+ pages, weed it down to something more manageable. Gave him some suggestions. He's going to bring back kind of what he thinks would be the final this Friday when we get together again, and then the plan is to bring to the council at the next meeting, have you all review it and edit, thumbs up, thumbs down, and then launch the survey. Anything to add to that, Joe?
No.
Questions? Okay. The next meeting is this Friday, 2 p.m., second floor City Hall.
City administrator, staff comments?
You covered everything I was gonna talk about, so we're good.
Any further council comments?
Oh, my next public safety meeting is June 11th at 4.
I don't want to be there for that one either.
You want to push it? 1
Yeah.
month?
You can do that.
So Jerry can do it.
I'll be in Switzerland.
Are you back?
You'll be back by the next meeting.
I'll be back 7th. Should be back somewhere around the 15th,
We are,
15th or 16th.
so July 9th will be our next one.
The 9th?
Mhm.
Oh, that's the day I'm coming over.
No, July 9th.
July
Oh, July
9th.
9th.
July
Okay.
9th. I do think we need a couple executive sessions, one for attorney-client privilege, legal matters, right, Dakota? Give an update.
For legal matters,
Or
or personnel for legal.
lawsuit.
Yeah, legal, and then, so I've got, update to provide to council that I can do that in the executive session, as it's an ongoing litigation.
So that'll be the first one. Need a motion. for that.
I didn't hear what you said.
Attorney-client privilege, executive session for attorney-client privilege on ongoing litigation.
Okay. I move that we go into executive session for what you just said.
Okay, attorney-client privilege for,
Who all needs, who all?
yeah, you have to name who all.
Council, mayor,
And how long we're gonna be.
how long do we need?
Dakota, how long do we need? 15?
It is, what did you have, 74 right now, 73?
73.
I think, let's say, once past 8:15. So we basically be back in session at 8:15 would be my recommendation.
We will reconvene at 8:15,
And then name.
and it'll be the council, the mayor, Glenn, and Dakota.
Good job. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second to go into executive session for attorney-client privilege and return here at 8:15. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Having twice how time. request now.
Client attorney privilege executive session for
So moved.
till, let's go to 8:30, probably. No?
Second.
Where's Jerry?
Aye,
Oh, there he is.
aye,
All
aye.
right.
It's
Who
been-
moved?
Scott,
I did.
So moved.
Scott and Julie.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes. executive session for employee matters. So I will entertain a motion to go to executive session on employee matters.
Who all of us in that?
Whatever you guys want. Council, me and the council is what the request was for.
How much time do we need?
I don't know, probably 15 minutes.
I move we
And
go
we'll need another
to,
one after that.
I move we go to executive session, until, what time is it?
It's 8:30.
Until 8:30? Is it now?
8:45.
Oh,
It is.
until, oh, okay, until 8:45, with the mayor and the council. Oh, and Dakota,
Oh, good. Employee matters.
regarding employee matters.
Your second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
You're gonna mix it up.
Hello?
Call the meeting back into order at 8:45. Entertain.
I move that we adjourn.
We have one more.
Oh, we do?
Oh, wait.
Oh, I thought we were done. Oh,
Yeah, there's one more.
I move we go into
I'm
executive
sorry.
session for, how many, 15 more?
Probably 15.
Until 9 o'clock with council, mayor, city administrator, and city attorney. Till 9 o'clock.
For employee.
Employee matters.
Second?
Second.
Move to second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes.
Second.
Here.
Wherever you are.
That was a loud
Call the meeting back to order. We have a
Yes,
quorum in here.
just once.
Julie, I'll entertain your motion.
I move with adjourn.
I second.
Move to second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion passes very well.
No.